Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by LocalMarketingSource.com. This update is taken from the Local Marketing Source Professional Development Program for local marketers.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Hey guys, Scott Gallagher here, Local Marketing Source, bringing you our weekly local internet marketing update. Now, our next week member faculty call is going to be March 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern, and the LMS membership provides access to our portal, our live Facebook group, as well as weekly calls and monthly webinars. Now, this week, we've got a few different things. It's going to be a fun week, a few different things to talk about, but for the update, we're going to be covering some aspects of Google Panda over the last 2 years and the impact that it's made for certain sites like HubPages, and an interview with the CEO of HubPages, as well as some interesting Google penalties that they're applying to themselves, or they should be applying to themselves, and the implications of advertorials. So if any of you know who Dan Kennedy is and what an advertorial is, this should be some fun information. And some updates about 301 redirects and PageRank. Now, for the tips that we're going to talk about, last week we talked about some aspects of learning how to sell SEO services for a local business, and today I'm going to change things a little bit and talk about business habits and addictions. Within the next couple of weeks, we're bringing in a guest. And what's interesting, if you've ever Googled your own name, well, I have, being Scott Gallagher. And I found somebody by the name of Scott Gallagher that I have now become good friends with. So it's very interesting to have a friend that goes by the same name as you. And I'm going to be bringing Scott Gallagher, the other Scott Gallagher, on a webinar in the next couple of weeks to talk about some business habits and different addictions. And Scott is a addiction specialist. And Scott has actually helped me overcome some of my own addictions, and one of those being cigarettes. And so I'm very proud to bring Scott aboard and talk about some of the different aspects. But when we really start to analyze what addiction is, it's very prevalent in the business marketplace. Now, last week, for a local internet marketing tip, you may want to check out the faculty call for that. We had a hot seat with Jem Webb. Jem's got an internet marketing agency in Ontario. He works in the tourism and travel industry and does a lot of different sites for the government of Ontario. It just so happens that Jem and I are friends. We've been friends for 12 years, well, acquaintances for 5 or 6, and in the last few years became friends as he entered into this market space, and we did some business together. And this week I'm going to talk about, at the end of the call for LMS members, different aspects of time management tie into the aspects of bad business habits and addictions, and different aspects of balancing your business and your personal life to achieve inner peace, in my opinion. I heard an expression once that was, chase your passion and the money will follow. Don't chase the money. And finally, before we get going, what's going on in the LMS member private Facebook group? Darren's had some discussions, some very good discussions, talking about a business, a psychology business, that has multiple businesses at the same location. And this is a common challenge faced, with chiropractors and attorneys, and a chiropractor may have a massage therapist in their office or whatnot. So that's the overview. Now, this week's local business tip, like I said, about addiction, and we're going to be bringing on Scott Gallagher to talk about this in a full webinar. It may not seem something that seems important at this point in time for you, but I assure you it's going to be a very, very powerful webinar for your entire life, not just your business life. It's ultimately going to help your business life. But what is an addiction? And so here's a little thing that I'm going to tell you my opinion on it, because the truth is experts can't agree exactly what it is. But you know, addiction is a worldwide mysterious plague that infests every level of society. It baffles and corrupts teachers, doctors, lawyers, police, and politicians. What is addiction? Why is it so powerful and persuasive? Well, addiction is a rebellion against a metabolic basis of life. Metabolism requires nutritious food to satisfy hunger and create health. Addiction bypasses metabolism by replacing food with fantasy, nutrition with numbness, hunger with euphoria, satisfaction and craving, and with health with sickness. So, addiction is really a fanciful, futile flight from life with a fleeing euphoria, constant craving, and a certain sickness. Well, whatever. You know, we've got a lot of different habits in business that, you know, for example, addiction to technology, like email, these crackberries that are out there, smartphones, and Facebook. I have an addiction to Facebook. Why? Because it's a place that I go when I don't want to have to deal with other stuff. Well, it takes time away from my life. And to me, that's probably the easiest way to define addiction, is when you do a habit over and over to get away from a certain aspect or a certain challenge. You know, as a cigarette smoker, I'd get stressed out. Well, smoking doesn't cure stress in any which way. It never has, and it never will. Unfortunately, I at some point in time in my life had programmed myself that it did. But the same thing for a lot of these habits that we have in business. And so later on, when I talk about different aspects of time management, for example, email, when do you check it? How often do you check it? Are you constantly going to an email? You know, as a matter of fact, I just realized this 10 minutes before this call. I got an email. Well, I had quite a few of them. But there was one that popped up in my little notification. I went and did. I shouldn't have done that, because I ended up being a minute late for the call. I let people down. Now I feel a sense of guilt and a certain sense of shame for that. Well, it's an evolution type of ball. I'll grow this out, and at the end of the call, I go have a cigarette. Well, not today. But the habits of this technology, and be very conscious of these habits. Another one, and these are ones that I've listed that pertain to me. They may not necessarily pertain to you. Scott is going to go through a lot of different aspects of business habits and different business addictions. But another one that I carry is interruption. And this is something I've been working on for, well, at least 10 years from the first time that I recognized it. Whether it's with my kids, or a significant other, or in business. And far too often, are people, they're not really listening, and about halfway through the conversation, or even before the conversation comes to an end, they've already formulated their response, and then they just sit there and wait in limbo sometimes until either A, it's done. Well, that, in my opinion, is still interruption. It's silent interruption. But if you formulated a response before that person has finished speaking, you might have well wasted your time. And this is a habit that I do, and I've got to be conscious of this. I've got to work on this and think about this. And there's many times that I'll be sitting there listening to somebody and saying, okay, are you hearing, what did they say? Run it through your head, you know, wait. And this happens several times a day to me, that I'll still get thoughts into my head when I'm hearing something, but I'm not formulating a response. And what's interesting is those thoughts, later after I analyze what had transpired, those thoughts would have created a response that is very different than the response I gave once I listened to the end of the communication. Another aspect is, you know, by human nature we dwell on negativity. I don't know if other people have to make efforts to remain positive and to stay positive. I know I have to make efforts every single day. I just got an email from a friend of mine. He's a He owns a little Kirby shop and sells Kirby's door to door, and you know, he tells me every morning they go in and they have a rah clap clap. You know, they do everything they can to bring the motivation up. Well, negativity in Facebook, as a matter of fact, you bring those two together. But negativity is something that's very, very difficult for a lot of people to overcome on a regular basis. And at least for myself, I have to make a conscious effort to try and stay positive or turn myself around. And the last one I want to talk about is, if any of you are friends of mine on Facebook, you notice I've been talking about this new product I bought called the Vitamix. It's a blender. That's all it is a blender. But it's a $500 blender. And for you guys overseas, it's a little bit more than that. In Australia, you're going to pay close to $1,000 for this thing. Why? Well, you put anything in it, and it just liquefies everything. I could put cold water in this thing with a couple of carrot sticks and a celery stick, and in 6 minutes the water's boiling because it spins so fast and the friction. So, in any event, I've been making an effort to eat much healthier. And today I just had an amazing experience. I juiced this morning. I had a nice smoothie with pineapple and raspberries and a banana, and I've been feeling great. I just love it. And then I thought, oh God, I wanted McDonald's. I had a craving for McDonald's today, and I never realized how shitty I feel after eating it. You know, I've gone to fast food quite a bit. Heck, I live in America. This is the life this is where we live, man. It's very abundant and it's very, very easy, especially being an entrepreneur and a single father. I have my kids 50% of the time every week. I pick them up at 2:30 after school. It really affects my business life and really affects my personal life, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I love it, but the point being is I'm busy. And to sit back and to spend an hour and a half every day or 2 hours a day cooking food, even though I love to cook. I love cooking, especially for other people. It's tough. It's tough. But I assure you, what I've been through, I don't know why I'm 37 years old and you're being told all this stuff all the time. And so this is just yet another addiction that I have to figure out and overcome. Whether I want to recognize that coffee is an addiction. Well, I haven't, I've had maybe 3 coffees in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I don't mind them. I don't need it. My smoothies work really well in the morning or whatnot. So I thought I would throw that in there as a local business tip for this week. Now for this week's update, I'd mentioned talking about Google Panda, and we're rolling around to the 2-year anniversary of Google's Panda update. And if you can remember, Panda update had to do with content quality. And so a lot of different sites were either delisted or penalized in many different ways. And one of those sites was called HubSpot. Not HubSpot. HubPages. And HubPages.com was a very big Web 2.0 site in 2008, 2009 that really helped SEO efforts in a lot of different ways. It was very, very powerful. And in 2011, they lost tremendous PageRank. And unfortunately, what happened to HubPages was their revenue significantly dropped. And in turn, they had to hire more people to be able to look at this content. A lot of these directory sites went into one certain business sense and said, well, let's clean up our act in a lot of different ways and stop doing this or stop doing that, where HubPages said, well, let's just increase the quality of our content. Like e-zine articles compared to some other article sites that are out there. Well, you have to have human editors to be able to look at quality of content. And, you know, we know getting writers overseas is very inexpensive, very easy to get, very feasible, very easy to manage. There's a lot of great things about getting writers overseas. But I never hire writers overseas. Yeah, I'll hire developers over there or designers all day long, but never a writer. Even if they're, yeah, and this is with due respect, and I apologize for our overseas students, but I would never hire an Australian writer or a New Zealand writer or a UK writer. Their culture is different. I mean, heck, in the world of search engine optimization, they spell optimization differently over there. Especially even being a Canadian. You know, the word flavor is spelled differently. Check is spelled. There's so many words that are spelled differently between Canada and America. It's amazing. So, you know, the good quality content should be written by people that have a native language in the culture that they were born and bred. Bottom line. So the CEO of HubPages, Paul Edmondson, I keep wanting to say Edmonton, maybe I got hockey in my head, Edmondson, basically, and I'd shared with you a few of the points that were raised about having to hire and increase this content, and the initial impact that they had was staggering. Well, they've turned around and bounced back from that. They surely don't have the same volume that they used to, but with human editors, they are dramatically increasing their content quality. Advertorials. Anybody that's in marketing should know the name Dan Kennedy. If you don't, go out and learn a few things about Dan Kennedy. I think it was somewhere in the early 80s, maybe the late 70s. Dan Kennedy coined the term and coined the marketing practice of advertorials. Dan Kennedy is one of the best copywriters on the planet today and has got an abundance of content and education that's out there. Copywriting is the core of marketing, and having others, again, people overseas writing your copy for your website, oh God. But here's a little bit of a story how the advertorial was formed. And he had a jewelry store, like I said, late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. I'm thinking 82, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that. And the jewelry store had a flood. It was in New York City, and basically they had to liquidate everything. And so, you know, it wasn't newsworthy. The media wasn't picking this up. So he went to the media and said, "Can I write my own article?" And they said, "Well, okay," or "I don't know," or "no," but ultimately he threw some greenbacks around and said, "Can I pay you to write an article?" Well, that's where an advertorial came about. He launched this advertorial, which was a news story about his jewelry store being flooded, and he had to liquidate everything out, and everything was being sold at a discount, and he did very, very well. Well, advertorials you find everywhere, whether they're in magazines, newspapers. I've run advertorials myself in newspapers, and you know, there's certain things, I don't know how other countries are, but I know in the United States you've got to, you know, this is a paid advertisement, but it's always small, and there's been many a time that I have missed the advertorial. And so Google is now penalizing advertorials. That was my initial response. Interesting. I thought advertorials were a very ethical means of marketing communication, provided that they're disclosed that it's a paid advertisement, of course. But marketers, especially copywriters, and copywriters like Dan and marketers like me like to say a lot. Although there's been studies done over and over and over, people constantly say, how long should my sales page be? Well, the answer to that is very simple. You make it as long as it needs to be to answer all the questions of the buyer, all the objections of the buyer. Well, studies have shown that short sales pages do not convert better than long sales pages. These long things that you see going over, well, guess what? They work. There's a lot being said, but there's different types of people as well that read. I'm a skimmer. I like to read headlines. And of course, when you're creating copy, you want your headlines, and somebody like myself that can get 90% of the story, not the details, but get the idea of the story just by browsing all the different headlines. But Google is penalizing advertorials. Why? Think of it. It's like paid links. You're paying for promotion. Well, okay. I get it. Interestingly, Google has their own advertorials for Chromebook, Google Analytics, Google Plus, and AdWords. It's going to be fun to report back to you guys as to whether Google's sites, and I know there's people on top of this right now, to see whether or not they're going to penalize themselves. And finally, I don't know if this was something I ever disclosed in the last couple of years, but when you do a 301 redirect, it's been reported by Search Engine Land, which is an extremely authoritative source in the SEO market space, that it lost PageRank. I don't ever remember believing this, so I don't know if it was something that I ever discussed. But we know we won a 301 redirect to gain all the PageRank back. And it has now been debunked. Search Engine Land is clarifying and saying that 301 redirects do not lose PageRank. Well, that comes to the conclusion of our weekly update, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about a local internet marketing agency tip, and I'm going to open the floor to any questions that you, our LMS members, may have. And I was going to talk about time management. You know, balancing your personal and business life for success. Stop chasing the money. Find inner peace. Follow your passion, and the money's going to follow. Well, what's the question? Entrepreneur. Do you work a 40-hour work week? 60-hour work week? 80-hour work week? You know, I was in the gas station not too long ago. I was saying I was in the gas station not too long ago, and somebody was having a conversation, and somebody had mentioned they were working, 65 hours a week, and somebody laughed. It was 65 hours. That's nothing. I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's this guy gonna say? He goes, I put in 80 hours. Well, I remember working a job after university. I worked 8 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning, doing thermal coating, welding inside big boilers hanging 150 feet in the air, and temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius or 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if that's the right conversion. I know it's not, but I'm not, what is it, multiply by 2 and add 32 for the quick one, or subtract 32 and divide by 2, but nonetheless, it was about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. We had to wear cooling hoods over our head and stuff, and I worked 84 hours a week. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And you have no life. I mean, literally no life between eating and getting up and going to work. That's it. I mean, life's too short to do anything like that. And this whole concept of time and what is time, it's an amazing concept. People talk about it always feels like that we're always trying to work towards something. Well, I'm in my midlife now. And I've always been trying to work towards something and recognizing, when are you going to stop and smell the flowers and start to take it? I keep telling myself, live in the moment. And, those are the times when I take a certain vacation here or another vacation there. But what's my greatest joy? My son and my daughter, period. Anybody that's a parent is going to agree with me on that. There's no greater joy. And, you know, some of the greatest things is like when my son got his new belt in Taekwondo. My daughter, she performed at Lollapalooza. When I see a video of I just watched a video, she's 15 years old, that she put together yesterday. Well, it wasn't yesterday, she's been putting it together. 100% self-taught. And my jaw dropped, and I was like, what, Madison? Are you kidding me? I mean, I've been studying video for how long and what I know, and I'm looking at it and following the components and what she's done and how she's synced up her singing and her friend and how she's interpreted the music to be able to put this music video together. And I was just like, wow, gave me goosebumps. My family, you know, a lot of you know my recent loss, and you know, you really tend to think about a few things. Well, they're getting a few more phone calls, and I have a better understanding of what they're doing, and shame on me for what I didn't do in the past, but that's okay. We live and we learn, and we change, and we're living in this moment now and not constantly trying to work for that. So, you know, really, what is that future? What is the future? Is the future in 5 minutes when I end this call? Is it tomorrow? Is it next week? Is there really a present, though? I mean, time is such a bizarre concept, because the present is really just a slice of time, but it's not really any length of time. It's like you've either got a very near future or a very near past, right? And we don't have a lot of time, you know, and things just keep going on, and so, you know, why do we do business? Well, because of the world, the society we live in. I'm not going and hunting and gathering food all day and building my shelter. I've got the opportunity to go and make this thing called money and give it to somebody else, and all of a sudden I have a shelter. So I'm just trading my time for different things, and that's really all that business is. And these people that just put in 60 and 70 and 80-hour work weeks, what are you working towards? And during that time, do you really have to put that time in to be able to accomplish your goals? Well, I'll tell you, if I'm checking my emails every time emails come in, I'm not effectively managing my time. And then people say, well, there's, you know, I can multitask and I can do this and I can do that. No, you can't multitask. You can't, and nobody can. Nobody on this planet has the ability to effectively multitask. And challenge me on this. There's been studies after studies, recent years, in the last few years. We're just learning this type of stuff. In the last 5 years, I'm going to say, we're recognizing that our brain cannot multitask. They say, well, females are better at multitasking than men. No, they're not. What females are better at doing is moving from one thing to another thing and back to that one thing and back and forth and moving this and that. And that's all our mind is really doing when we're truly multitasking. But our mind is linear and we're focused on one transaction at one time. Cutting the time out and then breaking your days. There's certain things that I do on certain days. And this practice has really begun to help me recognize what's important to me and what I'm trying to do and trying to build. I'm no longer trying to build an internet marketing agency that dominates an entire industry. Why? For who? To be able to have a whole bunch of employees and a lot more headaches and a lot more responsibilities. Well, if that's what drives you, good for you. But I assure you that your business is not defined by your payroll count, nor is it defined by your top line. I could take a company like Naparex, and last year the company did over $1 million in sales. We rank very well on the internet. We got a lot of business. The company has delivered over 100,000 deliveries. Yay, Scott, that's great. Guess what, guys? 3 years, companies, it's been 3 years old, done almost 3 million in sales, 100,000 deliveries, 270 agents across the nation. It's a big buzz within our industry. I founded the company and sold 80% of it. We have a $150,000 server, a $30,000 phone system, a call center. Sounds like it's all awesome. I haven't gotten any profit from it because the company hasn't been profitable. Yay. Yay, Scott, right? And then there's local marketing source. You know, people come in and people buy into these information businesses thinking that us quote-unquote gurus are so rich and there's so many different thought processes on it that why are they teaching something and not actually delivering it? Or, you know, you could make so much more money teaching it, why would you want to deliver it? You know, those are two spectrums of the scale. But like any business that's out there, you've got 95% of the people that make information products that don't make any money at all. You get 4% of the people that make a living, and 1% that are truly banging it out there. Well, those people that are banging it out there, and knowing that I've been in this business for 3 years, it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of your product or your service, unfortunately. It has everything to do with who you know. Well, the United States works off of that. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I've heard that many times in my life, but I've never been slapped by it so hard as it has been in the information business. So I got to put on my best duds, take my introvertedness out, and go out there and network and make friends to help promote my business. But I don't really care to do that too much. I really enjoy Local Marketing Source when I hear somebody that quits their job because of something that I had to share with them. And who the hell am I? Yeah, okay, I'm a little bit educated, but what do I think about education? I mean, $50,000 for something that I've never had to show anybody in my life, and that taught me how to learn, but I don't remember any of the book smarts. I could never write any of those exams. What a big crock. Oh. You know, I can go on with topics like this quite frequently, but I just wanted to share some of that information and share some of my thoughts. And you know, one thing I recognized is that we all have stories, and when we start to share our stories and people have an opportunity to learn from them, why not, right? Wayne Gretzky says you're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take, so why not? Well, that's what I get out of Local Marketing Source, is that people enjoy my stories. People enjoy listening to what I have to say. And yes, you can go and get information elsewhere, but they choose Local Marketing Source for that nature. And guess what? From my perspective, I took the shot. I never thought that I could be on a stage motivating hundreds of people, paying a lot of money to sit there and watch me. But I get that satisfaction out of it. And the greatest satisfaction that I'm learning is I am closer to Local Marketing Source students, not only as acquaintances, but building friendships, than any other business I've been in. You know, I just did a shout out in the portal and about a student and Nick, the Christmas cards that I get, and you know, this recent thing that happened to me and how he reached out, and that feeling is just, it's incredible. So I look forward to Wednesdays in the middle of the week to be able to do these calls. I have a lot of fun with these calls, and I really enjoy working with every one of you guys, although it's not my main source of income. But it's what I choose to do with my time. So maybe next week we're going to get a little more technical, guys, and get back to our regular rigmarole. I'm definitely getting philosophical in these days, but nonetheless, it is who I am. So I'm going to